really just a normal guy who was sitting on the couch one day and just got tired of it. And really, I think it's time. I think we've reached that point in our country. We've reached that event horizon where it's time for folks like me and like you, just normal people, to say, are we going to do something, or are we just going to talk about it? And, you know, talk can help, don't get me wrong. It's great that everybody comes to these meetings and we have a dialogue. But sooner or later, I think a statement has to be made. And unfortunately, I think we're at that point in our country where if normal people don't stand up and just career politicians do it, there's no real sense of sincerity to it. You know, I think with the other side, people that are really, really damaging the country with their economic policy start to see, wow, this guy gave up everything. I mean, when I say everything, I mean everything. My wife in the back of the room is pregnant. We gave up our health insurance. I gave up a lifetime of health benefits. There was no strings attached. So Tanya asked me to come and speak about immigration. And it's a topic I speak about passionately because I've lived it. My wife embodies the immigration ideal. And I find immigration to be a great topic for Republicans to talk about, and I'm always stunned that there are a few things I think almost anybody can be talked into it on immigration, even the far left that wants open borders. I think when you sit them down, absent the extreme ideologues who aren't going to be talking to anything, everybody agrees we need borders. Is this a country or is it not? I mean, do we believe in a nation or do we not? I mean, if you were to ask a kid, hey, that club you have, you know the little clubhouse we all had in a room when we were kids? Everybody had like little rules, right? 1 or 2. Even kids understand that. Like, there's got to be rules. There has to be some regulations. There has to be a border. There has to be or the nation means nothing. Does citizenship mean something, or does it not? I think you have to be so far to the left and so ideologically driven to say no to that question that you can't debate those folks anymore. But the folks who are centrist and even leaning left will say, yeah, that makes sense. We need a border. The far right folks, you have to convince them, yeah, we need a border. So is that not step one? Let's just secure the border. Have we done that? It's always something. It's always an excuse. You know, I said we can build the iPad. We can send people to the moon. We have the Hubble telescope taking pictures 6 million light years away, but we can't figure out how to secure the border. It's always a debate. Oh, we have to spend all this money. Spend all this money. We're already spending all this money fighting the narco-trafficking and the terrorism. But you don't want to build a fence? Double fencing, thermals, infrareds, motion detection, roads in between, border patrol, drones. What do we have to do? This isn't an anti-immigration issue. We have a country. A country has to have delineation points. Mexico, United States, Canada. It's a simple idea. That has to be step one. Again, eliminate the far, far left, and everybody agrees on that. So we can build a coalition on this and really get people to believe. That has to be step one, though. And I have to be clear on this with my immigration policy. If that's not step one, nothing else matters. Because if you don't have step one, you don't have an immigration policy. Forget everything else. If you're not going to enforce a border at both the northern and the southern United States, you have nothing left. So that has to be step one. Secondly, we have to agree. And this is where, again, I ask you, I'm not a nativist. I'm not a xenophobe. We have to agree. We have to take those on the far, far right. Some who will say immigration's bad. Legal, illegal immigrants are bad. They take our jobs. Folks, that's just not accurate. That's not accurate. It'll never be accurate. There's not one documented economic study long-term you will ever find that showed immigration into a country has ever been correlated with an unemployment level. Ever. Think about it. It'd be very simple to prove, wouldn't it? If immigration, legal immigration I'm talking about here, because illegal immigration has other costs, so let's talk about legal, people who follow the rules. Just remember, if you don't have a border, forget it. None of it matters. It's all illegal at that point. Legal immigration, if it really took jobs, wouldn't legal immigrants, the population of legal immigrants, be highest in areas with the highest unemployment? It makes sense, right? If they're taking people's jobs and people should bear, it's actually the opposite. So I asked those on the far right. Some I can't convince. Some you don't know what you're talking about. People take jobs on farms and agriculture. There is some job loss, there's no question, in very specific fields. But when you look at it in the aggregate, there has never been a case ever where legal immigration and the importation of human capital and ideas into a country has hurt their economy. There never will be. It's impossible. Think about it. If you're say into you're into your 60s and 70s, you want to start selling your assets. You've worked your whole life. You bought stock. You have bonds. At some point, you're not working anymore. Who are you going to sell them to? Oh, we're going to sell them to Americans. No, you're not. The birth rate at 2050 is going to go down. Who are you going to sell your stuff to? No one thinks of that. We'll sell them to somebody. No, you won't. The Japanese are trying to import immigrants into the country right now because they're having the same problem. They're in a demographic time bomb. Folks, we need immigrants. We need them. Now, we don't need illegal immigrants. There's a difference. There has to be a procedure. Now, absent the financial costs, you have to remember that when we think immigration, a lot of times the media, we fall into this trap with the mainstream media where you see, well, you know, the guy in Rock Creek Park, they killed Chandra Lee. We're like, oh my God, immigration is costing us so much. Are there illegal immigrants who are criminals? Are there legal immigrants who are criminals? Of course. It would be foolish. There's always going to be a cost. So the question is the cost benefit, is the benefit greater? And I'm here to tell you that legal immigration, we cannot come out as a Republican Party and say, hey, we're natives. If you're not American, it's no good. But I'm not going to lie to you. We need legal immigration. We don't need more of it right now. Now we're in an unemployment hole, and that's why I want to suggest a third option here. So first, we secure the border. Secondly, we just have to get in our, I think we have to globally view immigration long term as a positive for the United States. But the third thing is we have to revamp the system as we have it now. It's based exclusively almost on a chain migration-based system where you can sponsor people, and what winds up happening? We wind up absorbing 12 million people from Mexico, which we really just can't do right now. We just don't have the capacity at 9.2% unemployment to absorb that kind of influx from one country, and it's not practical. We have to move towards a points-based system where we can evaluate individual cases based on what they can bring into the country. If there's a paucity of engineering students and we don't have enough engineers, well, why aren't we? I know we have H-1B. I talk about it a lot on my site. There are a lot of problems with it. I always say we need to revamp H-1B. Let's move towards a point system where someone with an engineering degree gets a certain amount of points, and once you meet a threshold, we can bring you into the country. I mean, it's just common sense. The whole world has it but us. We rely on chain migration, and this is why our immigration policy, in conjunction with a completely insecure border, has completely failed. So that's really immigration in a nutshell. It's not bad. Illegal immigration is bad. There's a number of opportunity costs, significant financial costs, and social costs that come along with it. But thirdly, the system we have now is not really a system at all. We need to move towards exclusively a points-based system, at least until we get out of this hole. We can't keep absorbing people at this rate. We're adding right now to the pool, and right now I think we need to move almost exclusively to this system where, again, we can kind of move and tailor the system to what we need at any specific point. So that's immigration and customs enforcement are overwhelmed. It is such a long, drawn-out procedure, and there's so much mythology surrounding what happens with the deportation that sometimes I don't want to bore you with the details, but I can assure you, it doesn't just you arrest them and they're gone. That's not the way this works. To deport 12 million people, folks, is impossible. I mean, would it help right now if we had the police force to enforce the law? They broke the laws, no question about it. As we come across them in the system, they're caught. Do they have to be deported? Absolutely. Do I support 1070? Absolutely. But are we going to deport 12 million people? No, it's impossible. I'm telling you, it's impossible. Anyone telling you different is lying to you. But having said that, do I believe in amnesty? Absolutely, unequivocally not. Do I believe in a path to citizenship? We already have one. You know what it's called? Citizenship. We already have a path to citizenship. My wife did it. There's no path to citizenship. You just go and you become a citizen. Path to citizenship. If you broke the law, you got to go home. Sorry. There's rules. I just said, every kid's club has a set of rules, right? You break the rules. I'm sorry. Are we a country of laws, and does citizenship mean something, or does it not? They're just very simple rules.
Could some of the laws that require these procedures be changed to make it easier to deport them?
Well, that's a great point. That's a great follow-up question. What's the choke point? It's always they teach you in business school, and in a construction or assembly. What's the choke point? What's stopping you from making more of these products? There's always one. Whether it's a machine or worker hours, whatever. What's the choke point there? Is there bureaucracy? It's government, of course. I worked there 12 years. Well, actually 17 if you consider the NYPD. City bureaucracy. Yes, it's overly bureaucratic. There are a number of proceedings they have to go through. But I ask you this, and I am for streamlining, so I want to be clear on that. But I just want to be sure that we don't have the law of unintended consequences either. Remember, we are the United States first, and we always presume innocence. So I have seen people who've gone through the system who, was there a mistake here or there? Maybe, sort. You know, you have to be very careful that the person you're deporting meets the criteria for deportation. But, yes, I want to be abundantly clear, I don't like wishy-washy answers. We have to streamline the bureaucracy, no question about it. Do we need this long, drawn-out system? No, there's definitely room for improvement. That's a fantastic point. What's the problem here? The problem is we've made their poverty comfortable. That's the problem, and that's why I signed the DREAM Act petition drive immediately. Because, you know, I said to folks, what are the incentives? You always have to ask yourself when you put forth legislation like that, what are the incentives? What's the unintended consequence of this? Weren't we just, like this, Montgomery County was like the #2 place to go for illegal immigrants? I mean, what message are we sending? So you make a great point that, and I'm not saying also we shouldn't do a workplace. Listen, if there's a workplace that has, you know, 150 illegal, and we know about it, no, that's a legitimate law. What I'm saying is, should there be a national effort to hire 50,000 new ICE agents to go after every single, we could, but you're talking about a cost that's so prohibitive that you got to wonder if, and remember, that's not stopping anybody from coming across. So you deport 12 million, it's like a carousel. So I don't want to give you the impression I'm not for, you know, a workplace, workplace immigration enforcement at all. I am for strong enforcement, actually. But your point is perfectly valid. You almost have subtraction by attrition at that point. If you make the poverty uncomfortable. I mean, that was us. We grew up poor. You know, I ate bologna and Cheerios, and you know what? It was pretty terrible. And my poverty wasn't really comfortable, so I went to school. And
so you'd be for that as a congressman? You would 100%.
But we can't make poverty comfortable. We can't. The DREAM Act was actually a perfect example. Now we're subsidizing through subsidized housing and food, but now we're not only, it's not the education part, it's the education part that's taken from you. Remember, these are limited spots. This is a scarce resource, is it not? I mean, any basic understanding of economics is this is a scarce resource, or else it'd be free. Why does everybody have a Corvette? Because it's a scarce resource. There's a price on it. But there's no price for it. But there's a price for you. They get it. You get to subsidize education for people who didn't follow the rules. Totally, completely unfair on its face. But there are things that we can do. 287G. I support E-Verify nationwide. That's out there. I put it up on every site. I support mandatory implementation of E-Verify. These are things I can do. 287G, I can't. That's a local issue where they have to agree on both ends. Safe cities, I support. These are things I support. But I do believe in subsidiarity, meaning we have to push the level of responsibility down to the lowest level of management possible. In other words, what's your local police department doing about it? Nothing. Let's get them up here. Say, why aren't we doing 287G, folks? I mean, I've gone out there, because folks, hey, listen, you're paying this man's salary as well. They're called public servants for a reason. So I support this, but again, I'm not going to get up here and say in the United States Senate that there's anything real-time, right away, right now, I can do to solve that problem. What I can do is implement policies like mandatory E-Verify. Safe Cities is a great program. Now, 287G, meeting with local leaders and getting that promoted, 287G, these are things that are going to make a real difference.